So RDJ made some comments about Tony Stark, about Kevin Feige, and I'm elated, feeling pretty good about the comments. So we want to break that down, talk about it. You know, what's the deal, man? Because there have been questions. We've been covering this a lot. You know, originally I think many of us were like, oh, he's gonna be in Secret Wars. Duh. Then there was like a moment where it felt like he wouldn't be. Like, do you guys remember that? There was some article in the trades and they said something, and then all of a sudden we were like, wait a minute, RDJ might not be back for Secret Wars. Like, what the? And I think there was an effort around the time when he was, or no, it was late last year when it came out that they were considering bringing back the OG Avengers. It was that one article where everybody got super pissed at that one lady. She did that article and she was talking about how they might go back to the old Avengers. And then on the red carpet for the Marvels movie, Ash Crossan was like asking Feige about it. And it was like the most uncomfortable I'd ever seen Kevin Feige in his fucking life. So I say all that to say, like, we thought, yeah, RDJ coming back for Secret Wars. Then there was a moment where we were like, I don't know, like it's starting to seem like maybe not. And I think in some ways the what he said in the Esquire interview really just kind of like solidifies that yes, he will be back for Secret Wars, but it potentially hints at something even more than that. And so I want to get into that. But here's another thing. I want to tell you guys, you know, we're gonna just talk about the Iron Man thing. Like, let's be real, like that's why we're here. That's, you know, the whole thing. It's about Iron Man. And but that article in Esquire, I read the whole thing and I highly recommend that you do the same. In a world of clickbait and bullshit and headline reading and, you know, articles that should have been tweets and all the SEO and all that bullshit. I mean, you know what it is. We live in a bullshit time with a bunch of bullshit going on with different articles and things like that. This article was not that. It's almost like a form of gonzo journalism. It's like a story. The guy's like telling you about how the interview went, the energy in the house, what was going on with Robert. There's a moment in the interview where the interviewer's son calls and he lets him talk to Robert, and then Robert calls the kid back, and then Robert like literally gets emotional and like cries. It's crazy. So I just want to say that we're going to ignore all of that and just talk about Iron Man, but I think you should read the entire article. I think it's actually really good, and I loved it. Reading it, I was like, dude, this is awesome. What did he say exactly? Well, it's at the very, very end of the article. It says right here, how about the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Would he ever return to it as an Academy Award winner? Happily. It's too integral a part of my DNA. That role chose me. And look, I always say, never, ever bet against Kevin Feige. It is a losing bet. He's the house. He will always win. And that's it. That's all that's in the article. That's all that he says. Okay. And to me, considering the context of the article and how like exploratory the whole thing is throughout it, and then it's like just a little like part at the end that's about, to me, I kind of think maybe there was more that he said that had to go off the record because the quote almost feels out of place and it's just like something he wanted to throw kind of back in there, maybe for headlines. But I think for me, man, this was not just a quote where the guy said potentially I could, or I think Kirsten Dunst recently talked about returning to the role of MJ, and she literally said something like, yeah, because I gotta pay for my kids, so like those movies pay well, I would absolutely do that. We get a lot of actors that are asked about returning to comic book roles, and we get a lot of different answers. This one hit different. This one was like, he didn't just say he'd be open to it. He said happily. He goes on to say, that role chose me. It's a part of my DNA. It's in my cells. What? Like, that's wild. And I mean, I tell you, he made a comment too, I want to say it was a couple of months ago, where he said, I did some of my best work in those Marvel movies, and it went unnoticed for a lot of people because of the medium and the genre. And I think that's true. And look, I think that there's a whole discussion about finality whether bringing him back would feel cheap. There's that famous Rogan interview where they actually talk about this. This was right after he had stopped, and, you know, him talking about it and that whole situation. And, you know, the MCU has changed. I think the world has changed. Robert has certainly changed. Kevin Feige maybe has changed. Things are different. And to me, hearing him speak like that was not just like, oh yeah, like I could see myself doing that. This was him kind of like peeking behind the camera and not just telling us that he's gonna do it, but telling us that he's gonna do it because it means something, as opposed to, you know, no offense to her, but Kirsten Dunst, as opposed to some of these other people that will do it for a paycheck or do it for relevancy or whatever. He's telling you the role chose him and that Tony Stark is in his DNA, right? Beyond that, he goes on to talk about Kevin Feige. Now, we live in a day and age right now where the jury's kind of out on Kevin Feige, which I personally think is crazy. I know a lot of you guys, you like to like sort of argue with me or like, you know, sort of poke at me because I'm a huge fan of Kevin Feige. I think he's maybe the greatest producer of all time and a true genius. And obviously, yes, the last couple of years have been shaky, and a lot of that falls to Kevin Feige. He's the leader. It's automatically your fault. That's the rules of being a leader. Even if it's technically not your fault, it happened under your watch, it's your fault, okay? And I think, given the fact that the conversation around Feige has shifted, the fact that there's some Feige hate out there, right? This dude is not just telling you, I'm coming back. He's telling you, I'm coming back, and it's going to mean something. Oh, and by the way, don't ever bet against Kevin Feige. He's the house. He will always win. I mean, if that's like the biggest stamp of approval, the most you could support that guy, like that's crazy. I saw somebody saying in chat, it does kind of feel like Michael talking about Phil Jackson and, you know, like that kind of relationship. That's what it feels like to me. This shit feels real, bro. And it feels like at some level he is aware of the conversations going on right now on the internet, how the fan base has sort of shifted in what they're feeling. And as like, it obviously isn't just something perfectly crafted for me, but it kind of felt that way. Because that's like my appreciation for Robert Downey Jr. and what he did in the Iron Man role is immeasurable. I've been saying to you guys, I want him back. Not just for Secret Wars. I want him back. I want him all the way back, and I want him to be Tony Stark for like 10 more years. And I know some of you guys are like, no, blah, 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 blah. And I get it. I understand, you know, finality, stakes, all those sort of things. As I've tried to say a million times, it's comics. Everybody comes back, dude. Like, that's fucking stupid. But I understand that you have that opinion. I just think it's silly. So I want him all the way back, right? And as somebody that wants him all the way back, hearing this spoken that way, especially if you read that whole article, bro, you get such an appreciation for this man. In the article, there's this thing where Pepper actor, Gwyneth Paltrow, she's talking about how having a conversation with Robert Downey Jr. is non-linear. It's like talking to a Dali painting. That is expressed in the way he talks to the interviewer, how it all goes, Robert's thoughts. He's a very deep thinking person. He's been through a lot. And he thinks of life in terms of what I would describe as metaphysical meaning. He thinks in terms of meaning. And so it's, again, not just a check, not just a roll. It's meaning. It's in his DNA. Like, you understand the language? You hear what he's saying? So for a fan like me, dude, fuck yeah. Gets me really excited. I think number one, yeah, he's back for Secret Wars. By the way, I was told by very reliable people recently that you're going to get Hugh Jackman, RDJ, and Tobey. Those are like your big three. That's going to be at least a big part of Secret Wars. Those three guys together, and that's just like chef's kiss. Kind of makes the comments made by Hugh Jackman make a little bit more sense, where Hugh Jackman's like, oh yeah, I'll come back, but only if I get to chill with Downey and Tobey. That appears to be what it is. That appears to be what's happening. So I think the main takeaway from these comments, the main thing to keep in mind is like, bro, Secret Wars is about to pop off. 100%. Now, for me, I'm greedy. Can't help myself. I'm going to continue to push for him back all the way. All the way. I want him back all the way. And if we're doing this weird thing where the X-Men are in a different universe, the Fantastic Four are in a different universe, and we're blowing the whole thing up and smashing it all together and doing a new universe after that, if that's what it is, I want Robert Downey Jr. back. If they're going to build Avengers vs. X-Men, I want Robert Downey Jr. and I want him facing off against Hugh Jackman. Will that happen? I don't know. They are older gentlemen. I could see them walking away from the roles. Absolutely. But especially after these comments that were just made, I want him back. I want to watch Secret Wars with them together, and I want to watch him be Iron Man after that. One of the other things they talk about in this interview is how off the cuff Robert is. It has to feel alive for him. It has to feel fresh. So they'd be doing rewrites in the trailer. He'd be ad-libbing on set. He'd be throwing out pages of the script. Gwyneth Paltrow said at one point she stopped even learning her lines because why would she? He's just changing up all the time. And I'm telling you right now, that energy spread to the entire cast and crew. What happened with the Infinity Saga movies was something special. It was lightning in a bottle. And I will continue to say for the rest of fucking time, he was underpaid, not overpaid. He was underpaid. $50 million a movie, underpaid. And that's why he elevated everyone around him. He gave us legendary scenes. Legendary. And I don't care. I don't care if you don't want it. I want it. I want it. I want him back. And he is coming for at least Secret Wars and potentially more than that. So that's kind of, the take. That's the comments. That's what it means to me personally as a fan. And bro, I'm getting kind of excited. Can you imagine what the lead up to these movies is going to be? What the press tour is going to be like with all of those dudes together? Whoo, man. I am excited. So that's the take on that one, man. Love to know what you guys think about it. You think I'm going too crazy? Is it too much cope? Is it just copium city? Let me know, chat. What do you think?